Hey everybody, you're watching The Competitive Mindset. My name's Kyle Van Voris. We're back today. Adam Reiser, welcome.
How's it going, Kyle?
It's going great. I wish I had a little applause button. So like when I said your name, yeah.
Applause
Yeah,
for
exactly.
Kyle. Yeah.
Yeah. Please,
Nothing.
everybody,
Yeah.
hold your applause. Yeah. Well, when you're with someone as incredible and well known in the game as myself,
right. I'm humbled and honored to be on my show. You know, the not so competitive mindset with my special guest Kyle.
I think you flipped it around. It's the
right.
competitive mindset. You're on my show.
Okay.
Anyway, speaking of the competitive mindset, let's talk about Adam a little bit. Adam, everyone knows who you are. You know, that's true.
I don't know about everyone.
Most people.
Yeah, a lot of people who follow the Forcible competitive scene.
Anyone who is following
from
Worlds.
such controversies as the Hawaii winner or the losing in the finals of the World Championships to a judge ruling. Yes.
Yeah.
Who knows what classics await us next season.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna keep an eye on you, dude. The sequel's gonna be great.
I know.
So as you just mentioned, you got first place in Hawaii, second at Worlds, ARG Honolulu, first place.
Yeah, that was just last week. We got our very first ARG when I was living in Hawaii.
Right.
So I was living in Hawaii up until last week, and now since I finished my undergraduate, I'm back in Southern California. But I had just won my first ever ARG. Very proud that I can join such names as Zach Tufford or Quinn Kotecki with an ARG victory, but here I am today.
Yeah, maybe you'll get as many as they have.
No, I give up.
It's ridiculous.
There's too many in that area versus Southern California, so I pretty much stand no chance on that.
No, there's no way. Yeah, I mean, I think they each have like 10 or something. It's
something like that.
A gross amount of ARGs on that side of the country.
Yeah, they can probably like make a phone book out of like just play mats, just slapped together or something.
Yeah, probably. All right, well, sweet. Let's talk about the competitive mindset while we're here.
Okay.
Something that I'm really excited to have Adam on because Adam has a ton of insights. He knows like everything. And that's self-proclaimed. He told me that.
No, I didn't.
he told me that.
No.
And so the
just better than Brian Liu.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so aren't we all though? I think we all inside.
I think so. Yeah.
Better than Brian Liu. Brian works at. For those of you who don't know, Brian works at Costco now. So if you're in California, swing by Costco.
Pick up those $1.50 hot dog and drinks, and you get to meet Forcible Tavern sponsored player Brian Liu. Who wouldn't? It's an opportunity like that.
Right. Yeah, he's the one stacking the giant teddy bears up on top of each other in the thing. Anyway, so all right. So let's talk about Force of Will. Here's something I wanted to jump into right off the bat because we've talked about this before. It's very important, and I think anyone who's watching this, they need to learn this. At least you think so for sure. Is the mulligan. So we're just going to start off right off the bat. You're frozen now. Oh, now you're not frozen. All right. So. The mulligan. Talk to us about the mulligan.
Okay, well, so first off, when I think competitive mindset, I think so there are two things I think that separate me from the majority of most players in Force of Will, and I think that's mulliganing and how to win on the draw. So when going second, and so these two things are actually pretty related. First, I'll talk about mulliganing. So typically, when you see someone mulligan cards. And they only get 1 or 0.
Oh, you broke up a little bit, Adam.
It will mean they're. Wait, 1 sec. You're frozen. Oh no. Oh no.
Yep.
We lost all of it. All right. Tune in next week for some better player on the competitive mindset.
You're back now.
Okay. So when you're mulliganing, you should think.
Oh, this is great.
How many cards on average am I mulliganing? If you're mulligan like 2, 1, or even 0, but for the most part, you should be mulliganing more aggressively. Did I break up again?
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
But this is great.
No. All right. How? What was the last thing I said?
Something like that.
Oh, okay.
Something about the amount of cards you mulligan.
Okay. Mulligan at least 3 cards. Okay.
At least
3 cards. Okay, guys.
Okay.
On average, you should be, I mean, not always 4, but at least 3. And that's because you have to recognize what in your deck you need to draw in order to win the game. So if you're playing Bahamut, say you have you need the Regalia Levitine to win the game usually. So if you keep a hand of, say you draw a hand of 5 cards and you don't have Levitine, there's almost no reason why you shouldn't mulligan at least 4 cards in the hand. You're going to almost always need a turn 1 play also, so it's fine to keep a card like, a Flame Sprite or a Guinevere. Right. Probably only Guinevere, actually. But you should be mulliganing every card, not Levitine or Guinevere, in that opening hand, probably. And this is because so many cards in your deck are very similar to one another. Like, you can mulligan Lancelot, right, and another card, and end up drawing Rook Egg and Cthulhu. And these 2 cards will fill very similar roles, whereas there's no card in your deck that's going to fulfill a similar role than Levitine. Right. You could say the same thing about that current Alice's World deck and it needing either Elvish Priest or Morgana. And also Change the World, because you obviously need that for Ruler's Memoria.
Right.
And so you guys just should mulligan more aggressively for the most part.
Well, on that topic, for the... because you're talking about Ruler's Memoria real quick, you brought up.
Yes.
Would you always hang on to a Regalia in your opening hand before the mulligan if you run that stone?
Right. Okay, so right now we're in a format where almost every deck is playing 4 Ruler's Memoria. And I mean, why wouldn't you? Because there's almost no downside to playing a 5-color stone.
Right.
And, I mean, the downside is you're going to need the Regalia. So if you have the Regalia Change the World, the first copy of Change the World should almost never be mulligan. You guys should always keep, and once you keep the first Change the World, you can start keeping other cards because you don't need to dig for Change the World, if that makes sense. So when you're mulliganing 3 or more cards, it's because you don't have the necessary cards that you can't replicate or there's no substitute for. So you should always keep Change the World. If your deck is running things like Artemis as well, you can probably mulligan Artemis. I think it's safe to say that you can mulligan Artemis. So I think I would only keep Change the World, but it depends. If my other cards are so good to where I don't really need Change the World, then yeah, I would also keep the Regalia.
Right, so like if you're gonna mulligan
Did I break up?
a little bit, yeah, but so I'll recap because I'm a very good interviewer. So basically, get rid of if you're planning on getting rid of most of your hand and you have the Artemis, and get rid of the Artemis too. But if there's like 2 cards that you think are really, really strong, then hold on to the Artemis because you're going to need it or your stones are going to screw you up.
Right, and so an example hand, I suppose, would be if I had Morgana. So I was playing the Alice's World deck, which is very popular right now. Right. If my hand was Morgana, Elvish Priest, Cheshire Cat, Artemis, and it doesn't even matter what the 5th card is, I would probably only mulligan the 5th card in that hand because it's so powerful and it has everything you need.
Right.
To where you can get away with keeping this Regalia, which potentially might not do anything because you're obviously going to need it for your stones.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's what I think is really important. So with the mulligan too, obviously you need the best possible opening hand. That's what we built decks for.
You're right. And in Force of Will, I mean, because of how the mulligan system works as opposed to a game like Magic, which is where I come from, each player's opening hand is going to be very good, which I guess would lead to my second point of you guys need to learn how to win on the draw, or it's very important to in this game.
Yeah. We'll talk about that for a little bit because a lot of people feel that, I mean, this was huge in the Bahamut format.
Right, yeah.
That's the classic example, but people still to this day would argue that very much die roll. If you're on the play game 1, you have the a really high percent chance of winning the game.
So this is true in other card games as well, especially if you're playing a mirror match.
Right.
If you're playing the Alice's World mirror match, whoever is on the play obviously is going to have a huge advantage because they're just going to be able to set up their infinite turn cycle.
Right.
And they're just going to kill the opponent faster if they're on the play.
Right.
But especially in Force of Will, because you can mulligan in such a way to where you can keep your 1-drop, which is your 1-cost resonator, and then you can just mulligan everything else to make sure to increase the odds of your hand just being as grossly efficient as possible. Yeah. So with that in mind, when you're on the draw in Force of Will, your opponent is likely just gonna bash your face in for like the first 4 or 5 turns probably, and that's kind of just how a lot of games go in a lot of matchups.
Right.
So with that in mind, when you're making your decks, just any deck, one thing I look for is how does this deck play when behind? Because on average, you're only going to be playing 50% of your matches. How many cards like Flame King Shout, which plays very well from behind? How many cards like Little Red, cards like Artemis? These cards, when you're on the draw, it lets you kind of trade up. Rapid Decay is another one, or Demon Flame plus Artemis is good too.
Right.
That kind of lets you, I can trade my 1 mana card or my 1 or a 0 mana card for potentially a 2+ mana card.
Right.
So it's kind of like undoing the trades, because my opponent will always be 1 resource and 1 turn ahead of me. It's kind of like undoing it until like you get to more of a parity game state rather than just getting your face bashed in for the entire time. It's pretty bad.
Right. And then for people who aren't used to having their face bashed in, that can be tough, right? Because eventually they just like, oh, I'm just losing.
And that also influences mulligans. Like, if I'm on the draw in an unknown matchup and I have a Flame King Shout in my deck, then I'm probably going to keep it when I'm on the draw, because it's going to have a much bigger impact and let me come back from the game. Whereas like on the play, I might not need it.
Right.
So that's something that players need to keep in mind is when building your decks, is how does my deck play when behind? And I guess for a newer player, it's kind of hard to figure out what sort of card is going to be better on the draw. But I would say anything that lets you potentially trade for more mana worth of cards. Right. I guess is the most generic way to put it.
Yeah.
Right. Rapid Decay, right? If I spend 1 and I kill a 2-cost Resonator, then
it's pretty good.
I'm netting 1, kind of. So that sort of idea. Same with Flame King Shout, I can get multiple guys. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a I think that's a really strong point is when you're building a deck, like, we see a ton of decks pop up, whether it's on Facebook, Reddit, wherever, that they're everywhere, right? Right. They're not really
people are posting ARG lists left and right.
Right. Yeah.
It's too much, all these 15-person tournaments.
Right.
For,
Right, exactly. So that kind of brings us to my next point here is because you're right, like you said, 15-person tournament, like a lot of these events are less than 30 people.
Right.
It's really, really difficult to get your hand on the meta when you're only looking at 30 people at an event, like anything could kind of win. What, like when you're going into like Nats is coming up, and I've been asking basically everyone about Nats.
Sure.
If you were going to Nats, what is where's your head? Where are you thinking? Like, okay, I need to be prepared for X deck. Are you building around? Are you, what are you trying to find? Like, what's the best way for deck building for an event like Nats?
Well, first I would make sure I'm playing Reflect, because the card's very good, and you should be playing. If you want to win a large tournament, you should be playing the card because it's very powerful.
Okay, play Reflect. Check.
Yeah.
All right.
So the most objectively powerful deck in the format right now is Alice's World.
Right.
There's a few different builds. I know Rob posted a deck with Sendbacks and less Guibers.
Right.
And Zach Tufford recently won a tournament with Guibers in them, and a lot of people have been playing those variants. At my tournament, I played against a lot of those decks as well. So I would say that might be the most played deck going into Nationals, just because it's so resilient, because Reflect sort of covers for a lot of its weaknesses.
Right.
And it's just so powerful, turn 1 feasting. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. Being able to go multiple Guibers and just, Adam Brawley to reset everything. Morjana's also ridiculous with that card.
Right.
So for Nationals, I'm not going, but if I was going, I would either look to get very good at Alice's World and figure out how to beat the mirror, or play a pretty aggressive strategy, like some deck with Lancelots. Some people have said Fairies is pretty good against Alice's World as well, and figure out how to be favored in that matchup. And, there are some ideas out there. I would say the best way right now to beat the Alice's World deck is definitely to kill the 1-cost creatures, or Resonators. You want to kill Elvish Priest, obviously, because once you kill it, they can't just power up the feasting.
Right.
And you want to kill Morjana. Thunder and Demon Flame are pretty good, because I would typically hold it, and then when they go, all right, I'm going to use Reflexibility to look at and then I'll try and look at the top 3, and then you just Thunder in response, and they don't get to do it.
Right.
So just something to keep in mind is kill the cost resonators, and don't die to Guibers. Find a way not to die to that card.
Yeah. Guiber's no joke, man.
Yeah.
Guiber's no joke.
Yeah, you sometimes die to it before you even can cast Usano, so.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely scary in that regard. Also, like it's so funny how if your opponent plays Elvish Priest and at the end of his turn he targets it, all of a sudden your next turn you're like, I have to get rid of this Elvish Priest.
Right.
Yeah, it's totally different.
It's a totally obvious play,
right.
But sometimes they just don't have the answer, and then
right.
I mean it's pretty hard to lose after you go turn 1 feasting. I mean, I was playing the deck once, like for the first time, and I played an end of turn feasting, and then my opponent plays his first play is a Guinevere, and at the end of my turn, I had 3 Guibers, 2 Adam Brawleys, a Morgana, and a feasting, and my opponent only had a Guinevere on the board. So
they're doing all right.
Yeah, so they need to kill the elf. Kill the elf.
Kill the elf. Yeah. Slaughter the elf.
Yes, kill it.
But even like when they kill the elf, are they really that far behind at this point?
I mean, it makes it so you don't lose the game on the spot.
Yeah,
so
that's
that's a start.
Right, that is a start.
Because even then, they can still play the elf on the second turn, and then that still threatens the feasting the turn after. So, it's not foolproof, but you can just kill the elf again, or they might also just cycle and put the feasting on the bottom of their deck and try to draw a different card.
Right.
So they might just abandon that strategy altogether if you kill the elf. Because sometimes when the deck doesn't have Morgana, it's pretty bad. Like it's pretty bad with that.
They need to be able to see a lot of cards.
Right. Yeah, they have to be able to. Well, it's also that they can filter through all the Cheshire draws that they're doing too, because when you're Cheshiring and you're just putting the card back on top, and then you play like Familiar of the Holy Wind and you just draw the card you put back on top, like you're not actually getting anywhere.
Right.
But if you have the Morgana, you're able to continually see new cards, so it's better. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really strong. It's really strong. A lot of people are talking about Reflect, and they're just, I mean, there's been so I don't even.
I don't go on the Facebook forums that much. I mean, I'll go every once in a while. I'll read, what people are saying, but I'm not one to go and comment. And I noticed a lot of people are understandably, upset. I think a bit is kind of an overreaction because there haven't really been any, large tournaments. There haven't been any AGPs yet. So just because it's, dominating these small events, you can't really draw too many conclusions. But I mean, one look at the card and you can tell it's obviously too powerful.
Yeah.
It's just this card. It's just obviously nuts.
Right. Yeah. It's super strong. Yeah. It's so many effects. Like here's what I was thinking about the other day, and I was talking. I forget who I was talking to about this, but I was like, when they were writing that card, when they were making it, and they just they're shoving all these effects onto this card. Yeah. There had to have been something where they were like, you know what, this isn't that bad because of X card. In my mind, there has to be a reason why they made a card so different than every other card and felt it was okay.
Well, I'm not here to question R&D.
Right.
I think they were trying. I mean, to me, flavor-wise, I guess the card sort of feels like it's a boy and a girl. It's like reflect, refrain. It's like it's like two sides of a mirror, kind of.
Yeah.
So I think if I was trying to balance the card, I would have reflect be, you can only use this ability or all these abilities during your turn. And the flip side, which is refrain, you can only use these abilities during your opponent's turn. And that way, like, it's constantly flipping back and forward. And they're not, like, continually producing new stones and using the abilities during both players' turns.
Right.
Even in that case, like, even with those restraints, it might still be too powerful. So, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And it is cool. Like, I do like the card for sure. And what I really like, so this is what I really like about it is I don't mind so much one ruler. Like, I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I really like how it allows so many decks that you should just be garbage actually playable. They're actually they're decent now. Just because.
What decks do you mean by that? That were garbage? Well, no, I'm the one questioning you. Because,
okay, perfect. Yeah.
So before this format, so as some people may not know, I actually am the creator of the Red Arla deck, the Bloody Arla, or Brian Liu's poor, great list with Snow Whites in them. Yes. So I thought that deck was very good. We also had Blazer Cthulhu's last format. We had Vlad.
Right.
Very real deck. And we also had Bahamut. In this format, it's sort of pushing to where there's like a Knights deck, which is sort of similar to Arla. They still play like a lot of the mid-range cards. I mean, I honestly think Ruler's Memoria kind of opens things up more than Reflect itself. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm thinking about like...
I think it's mostly Ruler's Memoria, actually, now that I think about it a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, because I think of like decks, even like Alice's World itself, right? Like, it had a little claim to fame, but it didn't get really good until Reflect came, and you could filter your hand and find what you need. There's also other decks like if you wanted to just run like Susano, like 4 Susanos and 4 Ames, like now, like it's a viable strategy.
It's probably better now than it's ever been.
Right.
Because, people are dropping the early Guivers and you can get them pretty good with that. With, plus the Reflect pump, it's like 3,600 damage. So like that and a Thunder and they're dead.
Yeah, which is nuts. Yeah, because I think of stuff like that where I'm like, well, before, was I really that scared of a Susano with Ame? Like, kind of.
Well, I mean, you had a bow with 4 counters, so I don't know how scared of it you would be. And even the Alice's World decks right now are playing Artemis, so they shouldn't even be that scared of Ame.
Now, let me ask you about Artemis, because it just seems like with Reflect, Artemis just became less good. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. In Reflect mirrors, like in a Knight's Reflect mirror, it doesn't change that much because, like, if I'm on the draw, as usual, you always have to look at things for when you're at disadvantage.
Right.
I go Percival Artemis. My opponent plays Lancelot and attacks. So before, I would do 200 plus 400 damage. I would trade with the Lancelot.
Right.
Now I can do 200 plus 400. They pump Lancelot, I pump Percival, and it sort of cancels it out.
Okay.
So I think in a Knight's Mirror, you're still trading the same cards you were earlier.
Right.
It's just that like they can attack with things like Flame Sprite or Hunter, and you can't bow them down because they'll just pump in response. So yeah, I would say bow is slightly worse in the Knight's Mirror match, and it's significantly worse in almost every other case.
Right, that makes sense. On the topic of talking about specific cards, I think it's worth talking about Guinevere. Yeah, there's been a lot of poor Guinevere has been
Has there been? Okay.
A little bit. There's been some chatter saying that Guinevere isn't as good as isn't good as it used to be. Guinevere isn't an auto 4 of in every deck. Is Guinevere still just savage 1-drop, or do you think it becomes a little less good because you have Reflect and you're drawing so much?
So in terms of, some people used to call Guinevere the best card in the game.
Right.
I would say that belongs to Reflect now.
Right.
And yeah, it's definitely worse. I think whoever is saying that it is not as good as before is correct. Because these matches they're not so attrition based, right? Where Little Dread was a good card because you could like take their guy and like bash it into the other guy, then sacrifice it, and suddenly you just create like a 4-for-1 or something. Yeah. Because now it's just, Reflect will just bounce your guy. Alice's World's just going to kill you with a bunch of Guivers, and Guinevere it's okay in almost every matchup because at worst it's still going to dig you like a couple cards deeper.
Right.
But the games that it just completely takes over, and like the card will just win you the game in really grindy attrition matchups.
Right.
Those almost don't exist anymore, for the most part. So, yeah, I would say it's not necessarily an auto 4 of. I think if you are going to play the card, though, it's probably a 4 of.
Yeah, it's either 4 or none.
Probably if you're going to play it, just because it's just so incredibly efficient and so good against removal.
Right.
Right now, Alice's World is probably the most dominant deck in the format, so I could see not main decking the card because it just doesn't have that high of an impact in the matchup because it's not really aggressive, and the best thing it's going to do for you is just dig for your Flame King Shout or dig for your Thunder.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because when I was playing Bahamut at Vegas, and I found myself in the position where I had Guinevere and I had Flame Sprite, and I was like, kind of just rather play Flame Sprite and hit them for 200 than play Guinevere and wait, So that's why I don't know. I agree as well. When you look at a situation like that, you're like, I'd rather just hit face.
Yeah,
good.
I mean,
hitting face.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I like it.
The card's not bad by any means, but it's not, it's hands down the best card in the game. I mean,
right.
It has its downsides now.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think like before, I mean, a lot of people were talking about how like just red was so powerful, and it still is, of course. Powerful.
It still is, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to talk. Before it used to be very obvious, right? There's a best deck, right? What are you playing? You're playing, I don't know, in my opinion, last format it was Arla. Before that, we had Bahamut. Before that, you had whatever. So is there always going to be a best deck? Because we're talking a lot right now about rock, paper, scissors. Okay. And is it really cut down to, or is there one that's, a little bit better?
So right now, I don't think it's rock, paper, scissors. I think in the most competitive tournament possible, it's Alice's World versus the other decks because it's just the most objectively powerful deck. So I would say it is the quote-unquote best deck in the format in, when you're just speaking on power level, but that doesn't necessarily make it the best choice for a tournament just because, there are time constraints. It's hard to gain an edge in the mirror match. So, you're kind of just like flipping coins, right? If I win the die roll, I have an enormous edge over them, or I just like have to cheese them with Law of Silence when you're on the draw. So it might not be the best choice. Like it depends on what you think your equity of the tournament is. If you think you're going to be better than most of your opponents and you're confident, even though Alice's World might be the best deck, if you think, I can gain an edge against Alice's World, then it might be better just to take the other deck. And so, does that deck become the best deck in the format, or is Alice's World still the best deck in the format? I mean, it's just it's kind of on a tournament by tournament basis. As for the game of Forcible, I think in every single format we've had so far, there's always been one overall best deck, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because sometimes, when you have Grim or Abdul or the Arla deck from last format, they're not they're not just stomping everything like Bahamut was in the Bahamut format. It's barely it has 10% better against any other deck, and that's just an arbitrary percentage. It's it's pretty close against everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's really interesting because you're right. A time constraint, especially now, is a really, really big deal.
Yep.
These games take forever.
I've seen you play, yes. I never want to play against you.
That was horrible. No, listen, well, first of all, you saw me play on Untap, and, it
was awful.
It was my first time playing the deck. It was, that took a while. In person, I'm very fast, very quick player.
I'm sure.
Very quick, savage. I go straight for the win.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the play, on the draw, I play it all. I'm just very very competitive. That's why it's a competitive mindset. The show that you're on. But interesting enough, that is a thing to think about. Where it's if I'm going to go to an event, if I bring Reflect, and me personally, because you're right, I am on the slower side for sure. For me, it's I just don't think I should do it because I'm screwed. I'm what do I do? What's the best decision? I don't want to pigeonhole myself. When I'd rather play Bahamut, it's just very simple for me. When going to an event, is Bahamut just a great strategy? I mean, Reflect already has a weakness against J rulers already. Would it be worth it for someone who doesn't really think they can outlast the mirror match to just bring something super fast like Bahamut and just hope to win?
So if you're saying, the best deck for me this tournament might be Bahamut, as in if I was you,
right? Yeah.
So I think if this show is the competitive mindset, you want to be the best possible.
Right.
I would say we're in a reflect world right now.
Right.
You really need to just practice playing Reflect. You have to practice being fast. And as unfortunate it is, no matter how much you practice, you can't really control the pace of your opponent. So that's kind of, I mean, I'm sure everyone's going to experience, some form of at least coming close to time in this format. So say your tournament is tomorrow and you want to pick, the best deck, then maybe Bahamut is the best choice for you if you don't have enough practice with Reflect. Speaking right now of how Bahamut is, it's pretty good against Alice's World, actually, because you have enough removal to kill the Morgana. You can kill the elf, so you can stop them from doing the most powerful plays.
Right.
You're still a little soft to Guiber, though.
Yeah, very
because
soft.
They can pump their Guiber past your Susano, and I think in order for Bahamut to beat Alice's World anyway, they need to J-activate before they have 3 stones.
Right.
So it's pretty hard for the deck to beat Guiber right now. So I wouldn't recommend Bahamut. I think as unfortunate it is, if you're not good at Alice's World, if you don't have a Knights deck that's good against Reflect, I personally think that you can build Knights to beat Reflex World. Fairies is also an option that players can go. I know some players have spoken very highly of the deck because, you can just Flame Sprite, have a bunch of guys out, and you can just, repeatedly shoot down guys every turn. So you kind of just have to learn to Reflect at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you, right? I think if someone's coming into the competitive scene, especially with Season 2 coming up, right, and I don't think there's a room to say, I don't like Reflect, I'm going to play something different. Like, if you're going to win,
right,
you got to play the best deck.
Right, it's the competitive mindset, right? It's not the special snowflake mindset. You got to win.
That sounds like a better show, though, honestly.
Special snowflake mindset.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, anyway, Adam, I appreciate you coming on with us. It's been 30 minutes. I think we all learned a lot. You didn't break up for the last half of the show. So
thank God. Yeah, first half. I'm sorry if you guys watched that. I'm sorry. I don't know how it sounded, but
it sounded terrible. But yeah. We live and we learn. Next time we'll have less of that. Thanks again for coming on, everybody. Like, comment, do your thing. Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone.
There's more than just Christmas around here. All right, everybody. Oh no, one more thing. We forgot. Adam would like to show his trophy.
Yeah. Okay. So since I was living in Hawaii for the past year, I hadn't actually seen my Force of Will trophy since September, so it's good to be reunited with it. Has a little Force of Will symbol on it. It's pretty cool. So,
this is good motivation.
Good luck to all of you guys in Season 2 that you guys can win an even bigger and better trophy next year. Wow. So good luck to all of you guys out there.
That's a sick trophy.
Yep. All right.
Bye.
Thanks again and happy holidays, guys.